Admiral Peter Grant sat in the observer's chair and watched the alien council members talk among themselves. He had been coming to these meetings for 3 years now, and every time felt the same. The massive chamber was built for species much larger than humans. The ceiling stretched so high above that he could barely see it. Giant screens showed star maps and data that most humans would need equipment to read clearly. Lisa Morgan sat beside him, her hands folded on the desk. She was Earth's senior diplomat, and she had warned him that today's session might get difficult. The Scythian Empire had proposed new restrictions on human expansion, and they had the votes to pass it. Grant looked around the circular chamber. There were 47 species represented here, and humanity was among the smallest and weakest. At least, that's what everyone believed. For 47 years, Earth had followed every rule. They signed the weapons treaties that limited how many ships they could build. They accepted the territorial restrictions that kept them confined to a small region of space. They shared their technology freely, while other species kept theirs secret. They paid the resource quotas and export taxes without complaint. All of it was designed to keep humanity small and manageable. High Chancellor Corman called the session to order. The avian leader's feathers ruffled as he spoke in the common tongue. We now address Proposal 773. The Scythian Empire seeks additional limitations on human colonial expansion. Councillor Vexthar rose from his seat. The insectoid's multiple eyes gleamed as his translator turned his clicking sounds into words. The humans have proven themselves unable to govern responsibly. Their colony on Brennan 4 violated environmental protocols. Their mining operation in the Cascade system exceeded approved quotas by 0.3%. They cannot be trusted with further expansion. Grant felt his jaw tighten. The Brennan 4 violation had been a clerical error, immediately corrected. The Cascade overage was so small it was essentially a rounding difference. But Vexthar made it sound like humanity had committed serious crimes. Admiral Grant, you may respond, Corman said. Grant stood. His voice was calm and measured. The incidents mentioned were minor and have been addressed. Earth has been a compliant member of this council for nearly 5 decades. We've honored every treaty, paid every tax, and contributed our fair share to galactic security. We ask that this proposal be rejected. Vexthar's mandibles clicked in what Grant had learned was the Zintian version of laughter. Compliant? You've been obedient pets. There's a difference. Several council members made sounds that their translators rendered as amusement. Grant felt heat rising in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. The humans are barely civilized, continued Vexthar. They've been in space for less than 2 centuries. Most of us have histories spanning thousands of years. They wage wars on their own planet even now. Small conflicts, but wars nonetheless. And we're supposed to trust them with more territory? A Kelthian counselor joined in. Their military is primitive. Their largest warship couldn't stand against one of our escorts. Why do they need more space when they can barely defend what they have? More laughter echoed through the chamber. Lisa leaned close to Grant and whispered, "Don't react. That's what they want." But Grant saw the pattern clearly now. This wasn't about protocols or quotas. This was about humiliation. The Council enjoyed reminding humanity of its place in the hierarchy. They liked having a species they could look down on. Someone to be the example of what not to do. Admiral Grant, do you have anything else to add? Corman asked. Grant looked at each council member in turn. Some met his eyes. Others looked away. Earth has been a good partner to this council. We've asked for little and given much. We hope that counts for something. Vexthar rose again. It counts for exactly what it should. You're allowed to exist in our galaxy because we permit it. You follow our rules because you're too weak to make your own. Perhaps it would be better if the humans simply returned to their little blue world and left galactic affairs to actual civilizations, the ones who matter. The chamber erupted, not in outrage at the insult, but in agreement. Clicking, chirping, and sounds Grant didn't have names for filled the air. The translators struggled to keep up, but the meaning was clear. They were laughing at him. At humanity. Grant stood perfectly still. He felt Lisa's hand on his arm, but he didn't move. He watched Vexstar settle back into his seat, looking very pleased with himself. He saw Corman trying to restore order, but not trying very hard. He saw the faces of beings who thought humanity was nothing more than an amusing footnote in galactic history. Something changed in that moment. Something fundamental. Grant had spent 3 years being diplomatic, being patient, being reasonable. He had believed that following the rules would eventually earn humanity respect. He had been wrong. The vote was called. Proposal 773 passed, with 39 votes in favor, 7 against, and 1 abstention. Humanity's colonial expansion was now limited to 1 new settlement every 10 years, down from 1 every 5 years. Their ship construction was cut by another 20%. Their resource quotas were increased. Corman announced the results and moved on to the next item of business, as if nothing significant had happened. Grant gathered his papers slowly. Lisa did the same. They stood and walked toward the exit, and Grant could feel eyes on them. Some curious, some amused, some completely indifferent. At the doorway, Grant stopped. He turned back to face the council chamber. Vexstar was talking with another counselor, probably celebrating his victory. "Admiral," Lisa said quietly. Grant looked at her, and she saw something in his expression that hadn't been there before. "Get everyone packed. We're leaving. The session isn't over for another 2 hours. I don't care. Contact Earth. Tell President Carter we need an emergency meeting within 24 hours. Maximum security." Lisa studied his face. "What are you going to recommend?" Grant looked back at the council one more time. Vexstar happened to glance his way, and made a gesture that the translator said meant dismissed. Like shooing away an insect. "That we stop playing by their rules," Grant said. His voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "They want to know what humanity is capable of? Let's show them." They walked out of the chamber together. Behind them, the council continued its business, completely unaware that everything had just changed. Grant's last words before the door closed behind them carried across the room. Not shouted, but clear enough that several counselors heard. "You'll regret this day." Most of them didn't even look up. The shuttle touched down at United Nations Space Command Headquarters, 42 hours after the council meeting. Admiral Peter Grant walked straight from the landing pad to the presidential briefing room. He hadn't slept on the trip back, and he could feel the exhaustion pulling at him. But his mind was sharp and focused. President Helen Carter was already waiting when he arrived. The room was secure, shielded against any form of surveillance. Also present were General Marcus Cole, head of Earth Defense Forces, and Dr. Ryan Phillips, who ran the Advanced Weapons Development Program that most people didn't know existed. "Show me," Carter said, without preamble. Lisa Morgan activated the holographic display. The recording of the council session began to play. Carter watched in silence as Vexstar delivered his insults, as the council laughed, as humanity was treated like a misbehaving child in front of the entire galaxy. When it finished, Carter sat back in her chair. Her expression was unreadable. "This recording has already spread across human space. Every colony, every station, every ship has seen it. People are angry." "They should be," Grant said. "We've spent 47 years being good citizens of the galactic community. We've accepted restrictions no other species would tolerate. We've paid more than our share and asked for less. And this is what we get in return." General Cole leaned forward. "The military has been ready for this conversation for a long time, Madam President. We've watched species half as advanced as us acquire technology and territory that we're forbidden from pursuing. We've built ships we're not allowed to use. We've developed weapons we're not permitted to deploy. Phillips, tell me what we actually have. Phillips pulled up a series of files. Project Nightfall has been running for 31 years. It began when we realized the galactic treaties were designed to keep us weak, not to ensure peace. We've been developing advanced systems in complete secrecy. The holographic display shifted to show ship designs, weapons systems, and defense networks. Carter studied each one carefully. The Council thinks our largest warship is the ECS Defiance class, Phillips continued. Those are the ships we report in our annual military disclosures. What they don't know is that we've built an entirely separate fleet, 200 ships using technology that's at least 20 years ahead of anything we've shown them. How did we keep this secret? Carter asked. We built them in places the Council doesn't monitor, Grant explained. Deep space construction facilities in uncharted systems. We used resources from asteroids that aren't on any registry. The crews are volunteers who understand the mission. As far as the galactic community knows, those ships don't exist. Cole added more information. Our quantum shielding makes our vessels nearly invisible to standard sensors. Our plasma kinetic weapons can penetrate any known defensive system. We've developed artificial intelligence tactical networks that can coordinate fleet movements faster than any organic command structure. Carter absorbed all of this, so we've been lying to the Council for 3 decades. We've been protecting ourselves, Grant corrected. Every major power in the galaxy has secret programs. The Xinthians have weapons platforms they've never disclosed. The Kelthians have expanded into systems they claim are uninhabited. The rules are applied to us, not to them. What are you proposing? Carter asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. Grant pulled up the treaty database. Hundreds of agreements scrolled across the display. Weapons limitations, territorial restrictions, technology sharing protocols, trade regulations, resource quotas, colonial expansion limits. Every one of them designed to constrain Earth while giving advantages to other species. We withdraw from all of it, Grant said. Every treaty, every agreement, every protocol. We recall our diplomats and ambassadors. We stop pretending that playing by their rules will ever lead to fair treatment. The Council will consider that an act of war, Carter said. Let them, Cole said. We can defend ourselves, better than they know. Carter looked at Lisa Morgan. You've been quiet. What do you think? Lisa had been Earth's voice of diplomacy for years. She had argued for patience, for working within the system, for building relationships slowly. But something had changed in that council chamber. I think we've tried it their way for long enough, she said. I've spent years making friends, building connections, earning trust, and when it mattered, none of them stood up for us. They laughed with Vexstar, not at him. We don't have allies on that council. We have an audience that enjoys watching us be humiliated. Carter stood and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Geneva spread across the landscape. Somewhere up there, beyond Earth's atmosphere, beyond the solar system, the galaxy continued its business without caring what humanity thought or felt. If we do this, there's no going back, she said. We're already past that point, Grant replied. That recording has been seen by 5 billion people. Every human in colonized space knows how the galaxy sees us. We can either accept that, or we can change it. Carter turned back to face them. General Cole, begin recalling all military personnel from joint operations with alien forces. Dr. Phillips, I want our hidden fleet moved into defensive positions around Earth and our major colonies. Lisa, start pulling our diplomatic staff out of alien territory. Do it quietly at first, but have everyone ready to leave within 72 hours. She looked at Grant. Draft the withdrawal notice. Make it clear and simple. Humanity is terminating its participation in all galactic treaties, effective immediately. We're not asking permission, and we're not negotiating terms. What reason do we give? Grant asked. "The truth," Carter said, "that we've honored our commitments while others have not, that we've accepted restrictions while others have expanded freely, that we've tried to be partners and been treated as subordinates, and that, as of now, Earth makes its own decisions about its own future." Over the next 48 hours, the machinery of change began to move. Diplomats received coded messages telling them to prepare for evacuation. Military units training with alien forces were quietly reassigned. Intelligence officers began purging classified information from shared databases. Dr. Phillips moved the secret fleet into position. The ships appeared on sensors like ghosts, there one moment and gone the next. Council observers noticed unusual readings, but couldn't identify the source. Lisa personally oversaw the diplomatic withdrawal. She contacted friends she had made over the years, people who had seemed genuinely kind to her. Most of them didn't understand why Earth was doing this. A few seemed sympathetic, but couldn't say so publicly. On the third day, Grant delivered the withdrawal notice to the Galactic Council. It was transmitted simultaneously to all member species, released to every news network, and broadcast on every frequency humanity had access to. The message was simple and direct. Earth was no longer bound by galactic treaties. Humanity would determine its own path forward. Any species that wished to establish new agreements based on mutual respect and equal standing was welcome to negotiate. Those who preferred the old system could make do without Earth's participation. The final line was Grant's addition, approved by Carter. "We came to the stars hoping to find partners. We found masters instead. That ends today." The galaxy's response was immediate and chaotic. Some species demanded military action. Others called for sanctions. A few, very quietly, sent private messages suggesting they understood and might be interested in new arrangements. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Vexstar called for Earth to be declared a rogue state. Corpsmen tried to maintain order, but struggled as species argued among themselves about how to respond. And on Earth, President Carter addressed humanity in a broadcast that reached every colony, every station, every ship. "For 47 years, we've played by their rules," she said. "No more. We're done asking permission to exist as equals. We're done accepting restrictions that don't apply to anyone else. We're done being the galaxy's joke. Humanity stands on its own now." The speech ended with words that would become a rallying cry. "We tried it their way. Now we do it our way." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ECS Defiance and watched the tactical display. His ship was one of the new vessels, part of the secret fleet that the galaxy didn't know existed. For 5 years, he had commanded this ship in the shadows, training his crew and waiting for orders that might never come. Now those orders had arrived. "Commander Brooks, what's the status on the Zynthian border station?" he asked. Amy Brooks looked up from her console. She was the ship's intelligence officer, and for the past week she had been doing what she did best, breaking into alien computer systems and gathering information. "Their security is worse than we thought," she said. "I've been inside their command network for 3 days, and they haven't noticed. They're so confident in their superiority that they barely monitor for intrusion." Morrison smiled. That was going to cost them. It had been 30 days since Earth withdrew from the galactic treaties. 30 days of chaos as the Council tried to figure out how to respond. They had sent warnings, which Earth ignored. They had threatened sanctions, which Earth dismissed. They had demanded negotiations, which Earth declined. Now they were starting to realize that humanity wasn't bluffing. The turning point had come when Admiral Sandra Hayes, fleet commander of Earth's revealed forces, had unveiled the hidden ships. 200 advanced warships appeared on sensors across human territory, fully operational and clearly capable. The galaxy's military analysts had been scrambling ever since to figure out where they came from. Morrison's current mission was to provide them with a demonstration of what those ships could do. Take us to the Xinthian station at Outpost Meridian. Standard approach, no stealth. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Chris Palmer, looked up with surprise. Sir, no stealth? I want them to see us coming, Morrison said. This isn't about destruction. It's about sending a message. The Defiance moved through space at speeds that would have seemed impossible to observers used to human ships of the old design. The new engines used principles that Dr. Phillips and his team had developed in secret, combining human ingenuity with theoretical physics that most species had declared impossible. Outpost Meridian was a Xinthian border station in a system they had claimed 20 years ago. The claim had been disputed by a smaller species called the Rennick. But the Xinthians had simply taken it anyway. The Council had done nothing, because the Rennick didn't have the power to fight back. It was the kind of behavior that Earth had been forbidden from engaging in. They're hailing us, the communications officer reported. Put them through, Morrison said. The insectoid face of the station commander appeared on screen. His translator rendered his clicks into words. Human vessel, you are in Xinthian territory. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Morrison leaned back in his chair. This system was Rennick territory before you took it. We're here to make a point about territorial claims. You have no authority here. Leave now. Make me, Morrison said, and cut the transmission. Palmer looked at him. Sir, they're powering weapons. I see it. Brooks, are you ready? Amy had her hands dancing across her console. Ready, Captain. I'm inside their systems. Just say the word. Do it. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for years to come. The Xinthian station fired its weapons, but the targeting systems suddenly malfunctioned. Every shot went wide, missing the Defiance by significant margins. The station's commander tried to activate defensive shields, but the power systems rerouted to non-essential areas instead. Then the station's lights went out. Life support remained active, as did critical systems, but everything else shut down. Communications, weapons, sensors, propulsion. All of it went dark. Ghost protocol active, Brooks reported. They can't see us anymore. Morrison watched as the Defiance essentially disappeared from every sensor system the station had. They were still there, still in the same position, but to the Xinthians, they had simply vanished. Hold position for 10 minutes, Morrison ordered. Let them wonder. Those 10 minutes must have been terrifying for the station crew. They sat in the dark, knowing that somewhere out there was a human ship they couldn't detect, equipped with technology they didn't understand, and capable of actions they couldn't predict. After 10 minutes, Morrison had Brooks restore the station's systems. The lights came back on, sensors rebooted, communications resumed. But the Xinthians would remember that for a short time, a single human ship had completely disabled their station without firing a single shot. Morrison broadcast one final message. Your weapons are inferior, your security is inadequate, your confidence is misplaced. Tell your fleet that this is what happens when they underestimate humanity. The Defiance left the system at a speed that the station's sensors couldn't properly track. News of the incident spread quickly. Commander Brooks made sure of that by releasing the tactical footage to several news networks. Within hours, every species in the galaxy had seen it. A human ship disabling a Xinthian military installation without taking any damage, without even firing weapons. The demonstration had the intended effect. Galactic military analysts began reassessing everything they thought they knew about Earth's capabilities. Intelligence agencies scrambled to gather information. Defense ministers demanded reports on how humanity had developed such advanced technology in secret. Meanwhile, Earth wasn't waiting for permission to act. New colonies were being established in systems that had previously been forbidden. Human mining operations appeared in resource-rich areas, that the old treaties had placed off-limits. Trade ships began traveling routes that they had been excluded from for decades. Dr. Phillips gave an interview to a human news network that was broadcast across the galaxy. The reporter asked him how Earth had developed such advanced technology. "We learned from history," Phillips explained. "We studied every major conflict humanity ever fought. And one lesson appeared over and over. Never show your enemy everything you have. Always keep something in reserve. Always be developing the next advantage." "So you've been holding back for 30 years? "We've been preparing for 30 years, Phillips corrected. "There's a difference. We hoped we'd never need these capabilities. We built them because we understood that hope isn't a strategy." The interview went viral, not just among humans, but across alien networks as well. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive began to reconsider. The Galactic Council called another emergency session. This time, the tone was different. Vexthar still demanded action against Earth, but fewer voices supported him. Some counselors suggested that perhaps humanity's complaints had been legitimate. Others proposed opening negotiations. Corman tried to maintain order, but it was clear the Council was divided. Some species saw Earth's withdrawal as a threat. Others saw it as an opportunity to establish new relationships without the Council's oversight. A few species, the smaller ones who had been pushed around by the major powers, quietly reached out to Earth. They didn't want military alliances or trade deals. They just wanted to know if humanity remembered what it felt like to be treated as inferior, and if Earth might be willing to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. Admiral Hayes received those messages personally. She brought them to President Carter, who read each one carefully. "They're scared," Carter said, "not of us, of what happens if the old power structure falls apart. Maybe it should fall apart. It's been built on the strong taking from the weak. If we're changing the rules for ourselves, why not change them for everyone?" Back in space, Captain Morrison and his crew continued their mission. They appeared in disputed territories, observed illegal operations by Council species, and generally made it clear that humanity was watching everything now. Brooks expanded her cyber operations, infiltrating networks across the galaxy. She didn't cause damage or steal secrets. She just left markers showing that she had been there. A reminder that human intelligence capabilities were far more advanced than anyone had suspected. And in shipyards hidden in deep space, construction continued on even more advanced vessels. Earth's military expansion was no longer constrained by treaty limitations. New ships, new weapons, new defensive systems, all of it being built at a pace that would have been impossible under the old restrictions. The galaxy was learning a new reality. Humanity wasn't the weak, primitive species they could safely ignore anymore. Earth had been playing a long game, and now the board had changed. The Theta 7 system had been marked as forbidden territory in the galactic treaties. Rich in rare minerals and positioned at a strategic location between several major trade routes, it had been claimed by the Council as neutral space, which meant in practice that the major powers divided its resources among themselves while keeping everyone else out. Earth had chosen Theta 7 for its first major colony in previously restricted space. The decision was deliberate. If humanity was going to break the old rules, they would do it in a way that couldn't be ignored. Admiral Sandra Hayes commanded the defensive fleet from her flagship, 12 ships, all from the new generation that the galaxy was still trying to understand. They surrounded the colony site, which already had 3,000 people on the surface, and more arriving every day. "Admiral, we have contacts," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple ships entering the system." Hayes pulled up the tactical display. 50 ships, all broadcasting Xinthian identification codes. Fleet Marshal Kretok was commanding them personally. She recognized his flagship from intelligence reports. "So they finally decided to do something," Hayes said. "Communications, hail the Xinthian fleet." The face that appeared on screen belonged to Marshal Kretok himself. The Xinthian military commander had a reputation for ruthlessness. His multiple eyes focused on Hayes with what she had learned to recognize as contempt. "Human commander, you are in violation of Galactic Council territory. Withdraw your ships and evacuate your colony immediately." Hayes smiled. "This system was declared neutral, which means it belongs to no one. We're establishing a legitimate colony here. You have no authority to order us to leave." "I have 50 warships that say otherwise," Kretok replied. "You have 12. Even you must understand mathematics." "I understand that you came here expecting an easy victory," Hayes said. "You're going to be disappointed." She cut the transmission before he could respond. Lieutenant Chris Palmer, who had been transferred to Hayes's ship for this operation, looked up from his tactical station. "Admiral, he's forming his ships into attack formation, classic Xinthian assault pattern." "Which means he hasn't studied human tactics at all," Hayes said. "He's assuming we'll fight like they do." "Captain Morrison, are your ships in position?" Jake Morrison's voice came through from the Defiance. "Ready, Admiral. We've run this scenario in simulation 100 times. Then let's show them what happens when they bring old thinking to a new fight. All ships, execute pattern Delta 7. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The 12 human ships moved in a coordinated pattern that seemed to defy normal physics. They didn't stay in formation like traditional fleets. Instead, they flowed like water, each ship moving independently, but as part of a larger whole. The coordination was possible because of the AI tactical network that Dr. Phillips had developed. Each ship's computer was linked to the others, creating a distributed intelligence that could process battlefield information and adjust tactics in microseconds. Marshal Kretok fired first. His 50 ships launched a massive wave of weapons fire. It was an impressive display, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Almost all of it missed. The human ships weren't where the Xinthian targeting systems predicted they would be. The AI network had analyzed the firing patterns and calculated probable trajectories before the weapons even launched. Each ship adjusted its position by just enough to avoid the incoming fire. "Return fire. Precision strikes only," Hayes ordered. "Target their weapon systems and engines. No kills unless necessary." The human ships responded with surgical accuracy. Plasma kinetic weapons, developed specifically to penetrate Xinthian shields, struck exactly where Palmer and the other tactical officers aimed them. Xinthian ships began losing weapons capability, their engines failing, their shields collapsing under the precisely focused assault. Kretok tried to adapt. He split his fleet, attempting to flank the human formation. But there was no formation to flank. The human ships were already moving, responding to his strategy before he could fully implement it. Morrison took the Defiance on what looked like a suicide run, straight into the heart of the Xinthian fleet. Kretok saw an opportunity and ordered 5 ships to intercept. It should have been an easy kill. Instead, Morrison activated the Ghost Protocol. The Defiance vanished from sensors, right in the middle of the enemy fleet. The 5 Xinthian ships that had been targeting it suddenly had no target. They fired anyway, their shots crossing paths with each other. 2 of the Xinthian ships hit each other in the confusion. Not fatal damage, but enough to knock them out of the fight. Morrison reappeared behind Kretok's flagship, fired a single shot that disabled its main engine, and vanished again before return fire could reach him. The battle lasted 3 hours. It felt longer for the Xinthians. Their ships, designed for overwhelming force against inferior opponents, couldn't cope with enemies that moved faster, shot more accurately, and predicted their actions before they made them. Palmer coordinated the human targeting from his console, his fingers dancing across the controls. He had studied Xinthian tactics for years, knew their patterns, understood their weaknesses. Every shot he called found its mark. By the time Kretok finally accepted defeat, 34 of his 50 ships were disabled. Most of the crews were alive, but their vessels were helpless. The remaining 16 ships were damaged to varying degrees. The human fleet had taken exactly 0 casualties. A few ships showed minor shield damage, nothing that couldn't be repaired in hours. Kretok's face appeared on screen again. This time there was no contempt. There was shock, and underneath it, fear. "This is impossible," he said. "Our intelligence reports said humans were barely capable of spaceflight." "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted it to be," Hayes replied. "We've been letting you think we were weak for 30 years. Turns out that was a useful strategy. The Council will hear of this. Make sure your report is accurate. Tell them you came here with 50 ships to remove 12 human vessels. Tell them what happened. Tell them that this is the new reality." Kretok cut the transmission without responding. His fleet began a slow, humiliating retreat from the system. The damaged ships limped away, while the disabled ones had to be towed by the survivors. Hayes watched them go. "Morrison, excellent work with that flanking maneuver." "Thank you, Admiral. Should we pursue?" "Negative. We made our point. Let them go home and think about what happened here." The battle footage was recorded by both sides and by several independent observers. Within 6 hours, it was spreading across the galaxy. Every military in known space would study it. Every council member would watch it. Every species that had dismissed humanity would have to reconsider. On Earth, President Carter watched the footage with General Cole and Admiral Grant. "No human casualties," Cole said with satisfaction. 34 enemy ships disabled. "This is going to change everything." "It already has," Carter replied. "Look at the Council's response." Grant pulled up the diplomatic reports. The Council was in chaos. Some members were calling for immediate military action against Earth. Others were arguing for caution. A few were suggesting that maybe, just maybe, they should try actually negotiating with humanity as equals. Vextar was demanding a full Council war vote, but he was finding less support than he expected. Too many species were now afraid of what would happen if they actually went to war with Earth. The footage showed human ships moving in ways that shouldn't be possible, firing with accuracy that seemed impossible, coordinating with a precision that no organic command structure could achieve, and doing all of it against numerical odds that should have been overwhelming. "How many ships do we actually have now?" Carter asked. "The 200 from the secret fleet, plus the 78 that were part of our official military," Cole replied. "And we're building more. Without treaty restrictions, our shipyards are operating at full capacity." Grant added more information. "Intelligence reports indicate that at least 5 smaller species have quietly reached out, asking about protection agreements. They're scared of what the major powers might do now that the old order is collapsing." "And the major powers? Some want to crush us before we get stronger. Others think it's already too late for that. A few are considering whether they might benefit from new arrangements." Carter looked back at the footage, watching human ships dance through the Xinthian fleet like they were fighting children instead of a major military power. "Kretok is going to want revenge," she said. "Let him try," Cole replied. "Next time we won't be so gentle." In the Theta 7 system, the colony continued its construction. The battle had been fought in orbit, but on the surface, the 3,000 colonists had watched the whole thing on screens. Now they returned to their work with renewed confidence. They were building something new here. Not just a colony, but a symbol. Proof that humanity didn't need permission anymore. Proof that the old rules no longer applied. Admiral Hayes remained in the system with her fleet. She knew that the Xinthians might return, or that another species might decide to test humanity's resolve. She was ready if they did, and so was every other human ship in the fleet. 6 months had passed since Earth withdrew from the galactic treaties. 6 months that had changed everything. President Helen Carter stood in her office, looking at a star map that showed humanity's new territory. 47 colonies in systems that had been forbidden before. Mining operations in resource-rich areas that the old treaties had kept off-limits. Trade routes that Earth's ships now traveled freely. The blue markers representing human presence had spread across the map like a growing web. "It's remarkable how fast we've expanded," said Admiral Peter Grant, who stood beside her. "We had 30 years of pent-up ambition," Carter replied. "All those places we wanted to go, all those resources we needed, all those opportunities we were denied. Now, nothing's stopping us." The economic numbers supported her statement. Earth's economy had grown by 18% in just 6 months. Colonies that had been struggling under quota restrictions were now thriving. New industries had emerged, based on resources humanity had never been able to access before. But expansion wasn't the biggest change. That honor belonged to the political situation. The Galactic Council was fracturing. After the Battle of Theta 7, as it was now being called, several species had quietly approached Earth seeking new arrangements. Some wanted protection from the major powers. Others wanted trade agreements without council oversight. A few just wanted to know if humanity remembered what it felt like to be treated unfairly, and whether Earth might help others who were in that situation now. Carter had been careful with those approaches. Earth wasn't trying to build an empire to replace the Council's authority, but they were willing to form partnerships based on mutual respect and equal standing. 9 species had now signed bilateral agreements with Earth, not treaties in the old sense, with restrictions and obligations designed to benefit one side. These were actual partnerships, where both sides contributed and both sides gained. "Madam President, the Council delegation has arrived," her assistant announced. Carter nodded. This was the meeting she had been preparing for since the withdrawal. High Chancellor Corman himself had requested it, along with several other Council members. Not in neutral space, not at the Council station. Here, on Earth. They were coming to her. "Tell them I'll meet them in the main conference room in 1 hour," Carter said. "Make them comfortable, but don't be too accommodating. This isn't a social visit." Grant smiled slightly. "You're making them wait." "I'm making them understand that we're not desperate for their approval anymore," Carter corrected. "There's a difference." The conference room had been chosen specifically for its view. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the lights of Geneva below and the curve of Earth's horizon beyond. It was a reminder that this was humanity's homeworld, and the Council was visiting it. When Carter entered, the alien delegation was already seated. Corman was there, his feathers slightly ruffled, which she had learned indicated stress. Also present were counselors from 6 other species. Notably absent was Vexthar. The Zynthian Empire had refused to participate in any negotiations with Earth. "Chancellor Corman, welcome to Earth," Carter said formally. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Corman replied. His translator made his avian calls into human language. "We have much to discuss." "Indeed," Carter said. She sat at the head of the table. Grant took the seat beside her, now officially titled Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces. Also present was Lisa Morgan, who had a new role as Earth's Galactic Ambassador, though what she was an ambassador to was still being determined. Corman started with pleasantries, talking about the long relationship between Earth and the Council. Carter let him talk for a few minutes before interrupting. "Chancellor, let's be honest about why you're here. The old system is broken. My withdrawal from the treaties proved that. The Battle of Theta 7 demonstrated that Earth can defend itself, and the partnerships we've formed with other species show that we're not the problem the Council pretended we were." One of the other counselors, a crystalline being named Shentar, spoke up. "The Council maintains that Earth acted rashly. You violated agreements that had maintained galactic peace for centuries." "Peace for whom?" Grant asked. "The major powers who enforced those agreements certainly enjoyed peace. The smaller species who were exploited under those same agreements might disagree. You're destabilizing the galactic order," another counselor said. Carter leaned forward. We are changing it. There's a difference. The old order was built on the strong taking from the weak and calling it civilization. It was built on species like mine being told we needed permission to exist as equals. That order deserved to be destabilized. Corman raised a wing for silence. President Carter, the Council is prepared to discuss new terms. We recognize that perhaps the previous treaties were unbalanced. Perhaps? Lisa said quietly, speaking for the first time. I spent years working within your system. I made friends, built relationships, earned trust. And when my people needed support, when we were being humiliated in your chamber, none of those friends said a word. The treaties weren't unbalanced. They were designed to keep us subordinate. What do you want from us? Corman asked directly. Carter pulled up a holographic display showing a document. We've prepared a proposal for new agreements. Not treaties that restrict us, partnerships that benefit everyone involved. She walked them through it. Equal standing in all negotiations. No discriminatory restrictions on military forces or territorial expansion. Mutual defense pacts based on actual threats, not political convenience. Free trade without quotas designed to favor certain species. Transparent governance where rules applied to everyone equally. You're asking for the same rights as founding members of the Council, Shentar said. We're not asking, Grant replied. We're stating what we're willing to accept. If the Council wants Earth to participate in galactic governance, these are the terms. If you don't find them acceptable, we'll continue building our own partnerships independently. The counselors exchanged looks. They were used to setting terms, not receiving them. But the reality of Earth's military capability and growing economic power was impossible to ignore. There are council members who will never accept this, Corman said. The Xinthian Empire, for one. Then they don't have to, Carter said. We're not asking for universal agreement. We're offering to work with those species who see the benefit in actual partnership. The others can continue as they were. That would split the council, another counselor warned. The council is already split, Lisa pointed out. Half of you want to crush us before we get stronger. The other half realizes it's too late for that. This proposal gives the reasonable half something to work with. The meeting continued for 3 hours. The council delegation asked questions, raised concerns, and proposed modifications. Carter negotiated on some points, but held firm on others. By the end, they had the framework of an agreement, not a treaty, a partnership charter that would recognize Earth as an equal power in galactic affairs. Species could choose to sign it or not. Those who did would have access to Earth's technology, protection, and markets. Those who didn't would maintain their independence but couldn't expect the benefits. We'll need to bring this to the full council, Corman said finally. Of course, Carter replied. But understand something clearly. We're not waiting for council approval to continue what we're doing. Earth is moving forward regardless. This charter is an opportunity for others to move forward with us. After the delegation left, Carter stood at the window, watching their ships depart from the spaceport. Do you think they'll accept it? Grant asked. Some will, Carter said. The ones who understand that the galaxy is changing whether they like it or not. The others will fight it until they can't anymore. Lisa joined them at the window. We've created something unprecedented. A galactic order based on equality instead of hierarchy. If it works, it could change everything. If it works, Grant echoed, we'll have enemies. The Xinthians won't be the only ones who see this as a threat to their power. Let them come, Carter said. We're not the species we were 6 months ago. We're not even the species we were 47 years ago. They made us play weak for so long that they forgot we were just acting. 3 weeks later, the partnership charter was signed by Earth and 14 other species. Not a majority of the council, but a significant portion. More importantly, it included 3 major powers who had decided that the future belonged to cooperation, not domination. The Xinthian Empire declared the charter illegal and refused to recognize it. Several other species joined them. The Galactic Council officially split into 2 factions, though both still claimed to represent galactic authority. Carter didn't care about their claims. Earth had what it needed: recognition as an equal, partnerships based on mutual benefit, and the military strength to defend both. In orbit above Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched construction of the new space station. It would serve as the headquarters for the Partnership Charter, a neutral ground where member species could meet and coordinate. "It's a long way from that council chamber where they laughed at us," he said to his crew. Chris Palmer, now his permanent tactical officer, nodded. "6 months ago they thought we were nothing. Now they're building a station based on our terms." "It wasn't really about the technology," Morrison said thoughtfully, "or the ships or the weapons. It was about finally deciding we deserved respect and being willing to take it if they wouldn't give it freely." Back on Earth, in the same briefing room where the decision had been made, Grant met with Carter one last time before departing for his new command. "Any regrets?" he asked. Carter thought about it. 6 months of change, of conflict, of uncertainty, but also 6 months of growth, of opportunity, of finally standing equal among the stars. "We tried it their way for 47 years. We followed their rules, accepted their limitations, hoped that being good citizens would earn their respect. It didn't work. So we stopped asking permission and started taking what we deserved." Grant smiled. "What was it you said in that first meeting? We're done being the galaxy's joke." "And we are done," Carter confirmed. "Let them laugh at someone else. We have work to do." The story of Earth's transformation spread across the galaxy. Some species saw it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating others. Some saw it as inspiration that change was possible, even against overwhelming odds. Some saw it as a threat that needed to be contained. But everyone understood the central truth. Humanity had arrived as a real power in galactic affairs, not because anyone gave them permission, but because they decided they didn't need permission anymore. The council chamber where Vexthar had mocked Admiral Grant 6 months earlier now stood half-empty during sessions. Many species preferred the new partnership meetings, where their voices carried actual weight. And somewhere in deep space, Earth's shipyards continued building new vessels. Each one a reminder that humanity's strength had never been about what others allowed them to have. It had always been about what they could create for themselves when the restrictions were finally lifted. The galaxy had taunted Earth at the Council. Humanity had terminated every treaty overnight. And nothing would ever be the same again.